So you may not be aware, but chemistry has been an integral part of the curriculum at the university for almost 200 years now. And the building that we're in, Brown Laboratory, was built in 1937 and has played a prominent role in chemistry instruction and research ever since then. And so, whereas today we're going to, we get to look at this fine display, I want to take a moment here and just think about exactly where we are with this. So, in the auditorium behind me is the room where Dan Nathans took his first chemistry courses here. In fact, we have on a slideshow that's in the auditorium pictures of him out on the front steps of Brown Laboratory with other student affiliates of the American Chemical Society. And so he started here, did research. We'll hear more about that a little bit later. In the same way, Richard Heck did quite a bit of his instruction in Brown Lab 101 right behind us. And in fact, if you go down the hall to the left here, you'll come to the laboratory where he and his students made the discoveries that have led to what is now referred to as the Heck reaction. So you'll hear more about all of this in a moment. So while it's appropriate for us to focus on the display today, let's really remember that it's these hallways and classrooms and laboratories, that's where the real action occurred with all of this story, and it continues today. So at this point, I'd like to welcome to the podium Dr. Charles Reardon. Charlie is Deputy Provost for Research and Scholarship. Now, come on. At the University of Delaware. We've got all of that correct. Charlie is a faculty member in our department, former chair of the department, and in fact his own research shares many of the foundational principles similar to the Heck reaction.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Mark. Welcome, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. As an administrator, it's a great pleasure to be back in chemistry. So I want to add my thanks on behalf of the entire university community. This is a very important day and a great day of celebration for a very special place and two very special people who are two really of many. So you know very well that the University of Delaware is a world-class research university. And as we've recently articulated in the strategic plan of the university, I can't help myself as being involved in that, we're aligning our strengths in research, scholarship, and engagement to be a preeminent learner-centered research university. And by that term, we really mean we're at the nexus of discovery and innovation because of the inexorable link between education and research as practiced in these halls and all across this campus. This is precisely why many students, including Daniel Nathans, have chosen or chose to come to the University of Delaware for the opportunity to learn from and work with leading scholars in their field, not only to learn about the discoveries, but participate in those discoveries while they're students so that they can learn about the discoveries of tomorrow before they enter the textbooks and can be part of that discovery process. Because inquiry-based learning, of course, is the distinguishing characteristic of a research university and is our fundamental charge as a research university. So importantly, UD as a research university serves this fundamental role both in educating and training future scholars, a role we've proudly played for generations, and we observe our faculty and students, undergraduates, graduates, and postdocs working side by side in a rigorous environment that fosters the creativity and innovation while demanding a high level of excellence. Because in the end, our impact is both our science and the scientists that we discover. So speaking of discoveries, a little bit about Professor Emeritus Richard Heck, who discovered a chemical reaction that would, many decades later, profoundly impact society. The Heck reaction, as some of you know, is a critical technology, fundamental in the Human Genome Project, used by Big Pharma routinely today in the synthesis of new pharmaceuticals, and used rather widely in the electronics industry in everything from flat panels in your phones to big displays in your family rooms, perhaps. So what I think is really important about Heck's discoveries, though, was those weren't his goals. Those weren't his objectives. He was driven by a fundamental curiosity and a fundamental interest in discovery. So as the President of the United States 27 years ago this month said, in a sentiment that's shared widely but is not practiced as widely as it should be, and I quote, "The remarkable thing is that although basic research does not begin with a particular practical goal, when you look at the results over the years, it ends up being one of the most practical things that the government does." Hear, hear, I think that's very true. Now, in terms of Daniel Nathans, chemistry alum, received his baccalaureate in the class of 1950, he made discoveries in the 1960s that would transform molecular biology. He ushered in an era which we now refer to as molecular genetics, and he discovered molecules called restriction enzymes, which are really molecular scissors that allow us to cut and manipulate DNA in very specific and thoughtful and programmed ways. Those technologies have a profound impact on the delivery and care in the human health sector. Additionally, though, I would point out that those technologies are used not only to addressing human health, but also animal health, and in modern agricultural sciences, these technologies are fundamentally important. So I think what's key, and come back to what Murray mentioned, had to do with these two blue hens that combine their talents, underpinned by federal funding for world-class research in a discovery-based research learning environment to change the world. They didn't set out to change the world, yet they did. Now with this display, forevermore, when our students and our faculty and visitors are walking the halls of Brown Lab, this will serve as an inspiration to them that they know very clearly that through their work, through their commitment, through their passion, they too have profound inspiration to change the world. And so with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce our final keynote speaker, the Governor of the state of Delaware, Jack Markell.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Charlie. First of all, we are very fortunate to have Charlie Reardon in the position he's in at the university. He's a fantastic advocate and promoter of the university, and he's also just a great guy. So I do want to thank you. I will say, however, you stole my thunder because I was all prepared to talk about restriction enzymes and the Heck reaction, but I think you did an excellent job, so I'm not going to go there. I think this is just a phenomenal event. And for me, what makes it even more exciting, I was over at the Biotechnology Institute just before I came here. And the reason I was there is we were celebrating the BioGenius competition, where I just got to spend some time with about 9 or 10 high school students from throughout the state of Delaware who have won the statewide competition, and 3 of them are going on to the, I think, the national or the global competition in June. And I asked them each to describe the research that they had done, and they were sort of around the biochemistry area. And they were all very impressive, and not only was their science really impressive, but their ability to explain their science was also really impressive. And as I was leaving, I told them where I was coming. And I said, I don't know if you know, but the University of Delaware has 2 Nobel laureates in chemistry. One was a student here, and one was a professor here. And their jaws sort of dropped. And they were like really excited because, of course, my pitch to them was I want them to stay in Delaware. And I said it would be great if you continue your education here in Delaware. And if you do, you can be associated with the place that has 2 Nobel laureates. Or if you decide to go elsewhere, and we'd love you to come back. And I do think as a calling card, not that the chemistry department or the university really needs any more of a calling card because the reputation has been so strong for so long, but there is something about being able to say Nobel laureate that anybody in the world immediately grasps onto. Now, I know this from personal experience because back at, I graduated from Brown in 1982, and at my 25th reunion, it had just been announced that one of my classmates had won the Nobel Prize for, I think, for physics. Now, it turns out it was a guy who I didn't know at all, probably because he spent his all of his time in the library. But when I had to go home and tell my mom that one classmate had won the Nobel Prize for Physics, and a couple years later, another classmate became the president of the World Bank, she said, being governor is really not that big a deal. But that being said, and she's probably right, and trust me, she would much have preferred to have a Nobel laureate than a governor as a son. It's not to say she's not a wonderful mom and very proud, but I do think there is something really fantastic about this. And I did have I was governor when Richard Heck won the Nobel, and I tracked him down in the Philippines, and I called him, and it was just really a thrill for me, to convey my congratulations on behalf of the entire state. And he, we didn't talk for too long, but he recalled with a lot of pride, the time, and a lot of he sort of reminisced about his time at the University of Delaware. So I think this is incredibly fitting. It's a perfect place to have this display. But I also do believe, the display is one thing, but what's more, important is what goes on in these halls and in these classrooms, as you said. And I'm just, I think for the state of Delaware, this is a really, really exciting affiliation. And, hopefully we'll have even more in the future. And to all of you who, do this work every day, the joint work of advancing important knowledge and educating our students so that they're prepared to do the same thing, over the next several decades. Thank you for what you do. It's extremely important for our state, for our economy, and more important, it's more to the point, it's really important for humankind. So thank you all for what you do.
As we conclude, I'd like to extend several thank yous to people that made this possible. First to Peter Krawchuk and Louis Rosenberg and Stephen Yarnell. Peter is our university architect. Louis and Stephen are both from Mitchell's Associates that stepped us through the design of this and to come up with a fitting display here. Second, I would like to thank the faculty that did the research, the hard work to come up with the content then of this display, especially to John Coe and Hal White. Hal's around somewhere here, and Don and Mary Watson and Mark Bailey all contributed, and of course Gene White, who spent countless hours, I think, at the library researching the life of Daniel Nathans. I'd like to thank faculty whose donations provided the seed funds that allowed us to test design concepts for this, and in particular Professor Susan Groh, who donated the proceeds of a university teaching award toward this purpose. And then fourth, I'd like to thank Dean George Watson and also Charlie Reardon, because their offices provided most of the funding that allowed us to actually make this display a reality. Finally, I'd like to thank all of you for attending. This will conclude the formal program that we have, but please enjoy the display, please enjoy each other, and again, thank you for attending.